Tomek, also known as the Wolf, hosts a popular Polish TV show called The World According to Wolf. The show begins with an animated introductory sequence depicting a black wolf howling at the moon and jumping from a building. However, the wolf suddenly becomes anthropomorphic, donning a black suit and sunglasses and walking on his hind legs. He gets in a black limousine which takes him to a tall skyscraper, and before the elevator gets to the 100th floor, the transformation is finally complete. Tomek enters the TV studio and happily greets the ecstatic audience. He presents his co-host, a provocatively clad puppet named Anzela, and the show's DJ is also a doll. The studio is filled with heart-shaped balloons because of St. Valentine's Day, and Tomek starts making fun of the traditions surrounding this and other holidays. Ania is an attractive young girl who's watching Tomek's show as she prepares for a date with the guy she met online. She calls her friend Ola and tells her that she doesn't believe anything good can come from online dating. Ola reminds her that she also met her husband Bogdan online, but Ania simply states that they're the exception which proves the rule. Ola advises her to relax, put on her white turtleneck and leave a good first impression. But Ania is frustrated because she doesn't even know the man's name, who goes by the not-so-promising online moniker Ant-Man. Ola has to hang up because of the tense situation in her home. Bogdan punishes his teenage daughter Zaska by taking her laptop, and tells her that she'll get it back tomorrow if she helps her mother at the hair salon. Zaska angrily retorts that Ola is not her mother and that her real mother is not a hairdresser, but a successful lawyer. She blames her real mother's absence on Bogdan, and finally tells both Bogdan and Ola that she hates them. Bogdan says that Ola may not be a hairdresser for long, because she's been unable to hold on to a job longer than a week. Ola doesn't take this comment lightly, which further reveals their marital tension. Ania stops by her mother's house to bring her groceries and give her a box of chocolate, wishing her a happy Valentine's Day. Her mother says that she doesn't have anything to celebrate, and demands to know who she's seeing after Ania tells her that she's going on a date. Ania reminds her that she's approaching her 30s and doesn't satisfy her mother's curiosity. Arriving at the restaurant, Ania tells the receptionist that she has a reservation for two, presumably under the name Ant-Man. Unfortunately, but not so surprisingly, there is no such name on the list, but Ania manages to get seated after she points out the time of the reservation. Ant-Man is running late, and Ania tells the waiter to come back once her date has arrived. Tomek is sitting at a nearby table with his producer and close friend Marcel. Marcel advises him to tone down his attacks and insults toward women because they don't want to lose their audience, and points out that International Women's Day is approaching. Tomek is texting with an attractive woman who brushes off his advances, and Marcel elucidates to him that she might appear somewhat defensive because Tomek betted her sister. The wolf notices that Ania is being stood up and decides to make a move on his newfound prey, leaving Marcel to dine alone. Meanwhile, a handsome man goes towards Ania's table, and she happily stands up to greet him. Unfortunately, it turns out that the man is headed elsewhere. Ania turns back around and is surprised to see that her date has seemingly arrived. Tomek starts babbling away and apologizes for failing to come on time. Still, he soon admits that he's not Ant-Man, and states that she must feel embarrassed for going on an online date and ending up all alone on Valentine's Day. Ania tries to deny the accusation, but feels a little uneasy about the whole situation. Tomek tries to take advantage of her vulnerable state and offers to take her somewhere else, but Ania swiftly declines. An attractive woman comes by their table and tells Tomek that she's a big fan, then asks Ania to take their picture. Once the woman leaves, Ania tells Tomek that she's not attracted by his popularity, and that Ant-Man was simply unable to come to the restaurant. Tomek says that he needs to take a break from work, and asks about Ania's work situation. Ania tells him that she teaches music in an elementary school, and Tomek says that all the pieces are finally falling into place. He lunges on a full-fledged attack upon Ania's vulnerability, and ends up overplaying his hand. He deduces that she wanted to become a famous composer or conductor, but ended up in a stuffy classroom with talentless kids and frustrated coworkers without kids of her own. In her desperation and fear of growing old, she decided to meet someone online, but her date stood her up on Valentine's Day after he sensed her desperation from the restaurant's entrance. Deeply offended by his words, Ania stands up and starts yelling that he is a conceited little man who doesn't understand a thing. He's the complete opposite of the man she truly desires, an honorable man of chivalric quality who fights for his woman like a knight in shining armor riding a white horse. She angrily leaves and tells Tomek that she'd rather die than go out with someone like him. Back at work the following morning, Ania is helping a little girl named Ella practice her scales, but the piano has a broken key. We find out that Ola's husband, Bogdan, is the school principal. He tells Ania that she needs to move her classes to the gymnasium because he needs the room for another purpose. Ania wonders how she'll be able to prepare the students for the upcoming school concert, and asks whether it would be possible to fix the piano. Bogdan replies that the school budget is too tight. He would have bought a new piano out of his pocket, had his wife been able to hold down a job, and had his daughter done anything else, but stare at her computer and mobile phone screens. He flies into a rage that is broken down by the arrival of the new PE teacher, Peter. He shakes Anya's hand, and she notices a tattoo of a bass clef on his wrist. Peter explains that he used to play the saxophone in a band, and tells her that they'll manage to work something out in regards to the gymnasium situation. Anya smiles, seemingly taking a shine to her new colleague. Anya goes to visit Ola at the hair salon, where Zaska is also helping her with the customer. Anya tells Ola what happened on her date, but suddenly all hell breaks loose when the woman at the salon realizes that Ola changed the color and style of her hair because she deemed her old hairstyle unfashionable. Zaska records Ola's argument with her customer on her phone, and Ola soon becomes jobless yet again. She's worried about how she's going to break the horrible news to her husband, and Anya tells her that she will give her a key to her apartment. Anya goes home and watches the latest episode of The World According to Wolf. Tomek mentions that the 8th of March is approaching and starts joking about modern feminist women who have unrealistic expectations from men. There is a new puppet on his couch, and her name Hania is not the only thing that strongly resembles Anya. The doll also has long black hair, and wears glasses and a white turtleneck. Tomek and Hania reenact a few key moments from his real encounter with Anya, with a heavy emphasis on the whole night on a white horse idealism, which gets a hearty laugh from the audience. Zaska is also laughing as she and Ola are watching the program, and Ola immediately calls the distressed Anya. She carefully admits that Tomek's portrayal is not so far off from Anya's actual attitude about men, but tells her not to worry because no one will recognize her. Meanwhile, Ant-Man apologizes for not showing up and offers to explain why he didn't come, but Anya doesn't respond. Anya's colleagues have all seen Tomek's show and laugh as she enters the room, so she remains at a distance and slowly removes her glasses after Peter approaches her and tells her about Tomek's new bespectacled and old-fashioned puppet. Not so surprisingly, Anya gets a little angry and takes the doll's side, stating that Hania has values and principles that are completely forgotten in today's society, which leaves Peter in a state of bewilderment. Marcel and Tomek go to a meeting with the head of the network, whom Marcel describes as an independent woman of strong character who wouldn't take Tomek's misogynistic comments lightly. He admonishes Tomek for not listening to his advice about toning down the insults toward women, and he's sure that their show will get cancelled. It seems as though he was right, because the head of the network, Octavia, informs them that they've received numerous complaints from offended viewers who want the show taken off the air. However, she later states that the ratings have gone through the roof, and tells Tomek that she's moving The World According to Wolf to a prime time slot, but that they'll need to replace Marcel with an experienced producer. The new producer Jacek joins the meeting, much to Marcel's chagrin, and Octavia urges Tomek to keep on exploring his views on women and relationships because that's what the viewers want to see. Tomek also promises to keep Hania on the show for future skits, although she was originally envisioned as a one-off character. Anya and her students enter the gymnasium with their instruments as Peter finishes his PE class. Anya's students sit on the chairs by the piano, and one of Peter's students, a kid in a baseball cap called Igor, insults Ella for wearing glasses and hits her head with the ball. Peter admonishes Igor and makes him do push-ups while the other kids leave. Anya plays a classical melody on the piano, which is followed by a cacophonous noise from her students. Nevertheless, she turns to them and says that they're doing great. Later on, Tomek approaches Anya in front of the school as she's walking to her car. She gets upset and tells him that she doesn't have anything to say to him, but he insists that she should hear him out and stands in front of the car. Anya believes that he will move and starts the engine, but Tomek doesn't move and gets hit by the car. Anya rushes to help him as he's screaming and lying on the ground, but Tomek urges her to take him to a bar instead of a hospital. Peter witnesses the entire incident and seems reasonably upset, but Anya silently prompts him to keep quiet. Tomek is still aching as he and Anya sit down in a bar, and he finally apologizes for turning Anya into a TV character. However, he's insistent that the show was a big hit and that Anya isn't embarrassing, but rather endearing. He explains his idea, which sounds like a somewhat indecent proposal. He offers her substantial remuneration to go on various dates and relate her experiences to Tomek to provide material for Hania's skits. Anya gets up to leave and says that there's nothing in the world that would make her sell out for Tomek's show, but the wolf has an ace up his sleeve. He calls Marcel, who still helps him although he was demoted from his position on his show, and tells him to cancel the purchase of an expensive piano. Tomek explains that he's aware of the poor piano situation in Anya's school. He promises to give her a new piano if she stays until the end of the season, and agrees to let her leave mid-season and keep the piano if she happens to fall in love with one of her future dates. Anya goes to Ola's home and explains that Tomek told her about a mobile application for finding potential romantic partners, called Planet Single, but they don't know how to use it. Zaska is appalled by their ignorance and explains the intricacies of the app, and Ola and Anya start scrolling away. However, the appearance of an unexpected user soon stops them in their tracks. He has Bogan's picture as an avatar. Ola is deeply hurt and upset because her husband is trying to find a younger lover, but Anya says that the whole thing has got to be a mistake and urges her to take her next step carefully. Ola enlists Zaska to help her set up a fake profile, and Zaska advises her to choose a modern nickname in the vein of flirty girl. Anya meets with Mikolaj, her first Planet single date. The date starts well. He's a nice and handsome young man who arrives on time and treats her well, but alas, he's too shy and has a bit of a drinking problem. He proclaims his proclivity for vodka and obsession with soccer as the date progresses, and finally knocks down the glasses from the table as he explains to Anya what an offside is. Anya takes him outside and holds him as he vomits on the street, and later puts him into a cab. Tomek and Marcel find this unpleasant story quite inspirational and transform it into a successful skit aimed to poke fun at Anya's inability to find a suitable partner. Anya watches the show with Ola and Zaska, and sends Tomek a text in which she admits that this time around the show was funny. Ola finally summons the courage to like Bogdan's profile. He texts flirty girl Tutu right away, and Ola asks if he wants to meet her. However, the user demands to see some saucy pictures first, and Ola angrily puts her phone down. Zaska laughs as she watches the wolf, but Anya's misadventures aren't the only source of her merriment. It turns out that Bogdan's profile is also fake, and that Zaska is the person behind it. Anya meets her next date, a trendily dressed and overconfident young man called Dominic. He offers to take her home straight away and declines to engage in conversation because he's on a tight schedule. He extends the same offer to another girl who also waits for him at the bar. She's also met him through Planet Single, and she accepts the invitation to go to his home right off the bat. Anya relates her latest experience to Tomek, expressing her inability to comprehend the woman's behavior, but Tomek tells her that she's too uptight and invites her to the TV studio where The World According to Wolf is filmed. Anya invites Ola to come as well, and she soon leaves without telling Bogdan where she's going. Bogdan's suspicions about his wife's infidelity are exacerbated through Zaska's devious online plot. Bogdan finds out about Planet Single from a TV commercial, and he hears the app's sounds emitting from Ola's phone after Zaska stealthily turns up the volume and texts her from her secret profile. He spies on the lewd texts, and he also decides to turn to Zaska for help with Planet Single, claiming that he needs to explain the dangers of online dating to the students in his school. Dominic is also turned into a puppet for the next show, and later on, Tomek takes Anya and Ola backstage. Marcel knows that Ola is an expert hairdresser and takes her to the makeup room where she finds a provocative latex costume. She puts it on and takes selfies to satisfy the user's lust. Tomek takes Anya to a room with numerous puppets, and explains that he made the first dozen himself. He introduces her to his first puppet, Simon, and tells her that he didn't have any friends when he was a child and had to provide his entertainment. His parents were always working and his granddad was an experienced ventriloquist who used to work on children's shows, and thus he introduced him to the world of puppetry. Anya also relays her life story, remembering how her father, who was a composer, taught her to play the piano when she was a little girl. Music soon became her burning passion. She was accepted to a Paris conservatory, but her father's untimely death prevented her from going because she needed to stay with her devastated mother. Tomek is touched by her tragic story, and it seems like he's starting to develop warm feelings toward Anya. Anya visits her mother, and later in the evening chats with someone called Bittersweet, who has a bass clef for an avatar. They text for a long time, and the conversation becomes intimate when they both admit to feeling stuck and in need of change. Anya wants to meet in real life, but Bittersweet responds that they should just keep texting at this stage. Because of his tattoo, Anya is convinced that Bittersweet is Peter, and tries to drop a few hints about his online nick while they're getting coffee at work the following morning. Peter is left bewildered yet again. Anya goes on a few more unsuccessful dates. The first guy is too young, and the second is unaware that he's gay. The third takes her to see a boring film which causes her to fall asleep, and the fourth one is too poor and urges her to say it's her birthday so they can get a free cake. The next guy turns out to be overly jealous, and he attacks Peter when he happens to pass by and say hello to his colleague. All of them become fodder for funny skits on Tomek's show, but the wolf is beginning to experience deep trouble when he finds himself kissing Anya in between endless intimate encounters with numerous attractive women. He seems unable to cope with his feelings towards Anya, which become more serious with each passing moment, and finds him completely unprepared. Meanwhile, Zaska sends dirty texts to both Ola and Bogdan, and forwards the provocative selfies she receives from flirty girl to her father from yet another fake profile she sets up, artist girl. Zaska's evil plan is nearing completion as the unaware couple finally arranges a meeting, and Zaska documents each step of the way on a blog titled How to Get Rid of a Wicked Stepmother. Anya goes to her mother's, and they watch television while Anya texts with Ant-Man, who wants to make up for missing their date. Her mother is disgusted by Tomek's body antics and Anya's online addiction, claiming that a conversation must take place in real life. She should be with someone who would never give up on pursuing her, as Anya's father wooed her when they were young. This prompts Anya to accept Ant-Man's invitation to dinner. She takes revenge by coming late, and Ant-Man finally introduces himself as Antony. He explains that he didn't come to the date because his daughter went missing, which Anya brushes off as a pathetic tall tale. However, she soon realizes that Antony is telling the truth. His wife was a choir singer who recently died, and his daughter Matilda went to the Philharmonic to inquire about her next performance. Anya feels bad for laughing and apologizes, but Antony admits that the subject is too heavy for a first date, yet he had to explain why he missed their initial appointment. The evening goes well, with both of them joking and enjoying each other's company. Tomek invites Anya to his spacious apartment, and she's surprised to find a vinyl record of a song she used to play for her parents when she was a little girl. She tells him that her mother stopped listening to the song after her husband died. She doesn't want to talk about the date with Ant-Man, who is a doctor, because everything went great, and she doesn't want Antony to end up as a puppet on Tomek's show. She found him truly charming, handsome, and funny. Tomek is disappointed to hear about this development and urges her to open her eyes and realize that Antony told her a fabricated sob story. He offers to give her the piano, as per the agreement, claiming that Anya has fallen in love. At Anya's suggestion, Antony takes Matilda to join her school orchestra, and they arrange a second date. They happen to go out in the same discotheque where Tomek is partying with the bimbo, and he invites both of them to his show. He follows Antony to the bathroom and overhears his phone conversation. He seemingly tells his daughter that he loves her and urges her to kiss mommy goodnight. In the meantime, Ola and Bogdan dress up and leave for their separate dates. Both are angry and anxious to confront each other for their supposed cheating, and they soon start shouting insults and have to leave the restaurant. Ola inadvertently admits that she was fired from the hair salon, and Bogdan says that she isn't fit to be a wife and a mother. Ola agrees that she should leave him for good. Zoska records the entire incident, hidden at a nearby table. Anya takes Antony to her home, but Ola is lying on her couch in a drunken state and makes him leave by claiming that all men are pigs. She tells Anya that her marriage is over. Octavia tells Tomek that their ratings are down and that he needs to do something sensational. For example, he could expose Anya's true identity, although he's promised Anya that she would remain anonymous. Tomek decides to take matters into his own hands and start stalking Antony's home with Marcel. They see him kiss a blonde woman as he goes off to work, and later on go inside and regrettably inform her that her husband is a cheater. The woman is furious and wants to wreak horrible revenge on her cheating pig of a husband, stating that he's already used the same sob story to seduce several naive women. Tomek tells her that he wants to expose him on television, and the woman agrees. In the evening, Tomek's team interrupts Anya and Antony's romantic date at an amphitheater where Antony's wife used to sing. The cameraman zooms in on Anya, who Tomek presents as the real person behind Anya. Then he proclaims that he's about to expose a serial cheater, Antony, a married man who continually seduces young women by telling them lies. His wife appears and furiously attacks Anya, but the woman turns out to be Antony's sister, Maria, who also has a daughter. The misunderstanding is soon cleared up and Marcel apologizes for the incident. But Antony is disgusted by the whole situation and leaves without saying goodbye to Anya. Anya tells Tomek that she never wants to see him again, and Marcel also deserts him because he can't accept what his old friend has turned into and feels betrayed. After all, Tomek didn't stand up to Octavia when she replaced him with Jacek. Antony doesn't pick up Anya's calls and goes home to embrace his daughter, who finally seems to have realized that her mother's gone for good. Anya goes home in a terrible state and embraces Ola, who's also feeling sad after her breakup with Bogdan. Zoska smiles as she rewatches the restaurant incident, but later on feels bad when she notices her father's loneliness. Octavia and Jacek tell Tomek that Marcel left the production and congratulate him on the excellent Jerry Springer footage. Anya picks up a TV guide which she's supposed to bring to her mother, but tosses it in the trash when she looks at the cover. Tomek has promised to reveal Anya's true identity on the show's season finale. She finally stands up to her mother after she disregards her invitation to the school concert, and tells her that she can't keep on living like her housemaid. Antony returns with Matilda at one of the final rehearsals before the recital, claiming that she practically dragged him to Anya's class. Anya apologizes for everything that happened, and Antony forgives her but tells her that it's too soon for him to be entering a new relationship. The pair embrace. Tomek gets drunk and goes to a bar where the puker who went out with Anya attacks him for caricaturing him on the show. Tomek manages to pick himself up and goes to Marcel's home, where he starts shouting towards the window. He apologizes profusely and admits that he owes his success to him, and Marcel finally takes pity and takes him home. The angry neighbors recognize Tomek and conclude that he must be gay. In the meantime, Zoska rewatches the hair salon incident and realizes that Ola cared for her all along. She wants her father to break free from his depression and decides to admit to her complicated planet single deceit. She goes to Anya's home and tells her stepmother the truth. But Ola says that Zoska's not to blame because she and Bogdan simply aren't meant to be a couple. Anya decides to make some last-minute changes to the performance, and announces that the change will involve Peter's band and little Igor. Marcel appears in the director's booth before the Wolf season finale begins filming, and tells Jacek that Octavia wants to speak with him. He locks the door as soon as Jacek leaves, and gives the producers another tape instead of the footage from the amphitheater. Tomek enters the stage wearing sunglasses, but soon discards them and admits that he recently got beaten up. He's all alone because he mocked people who were more honest and braver than him, and who weren't afraid to try and find love. The video shows everyone who went on a date with Anya, and all of them explain how their unsuccessful dates directly led them to meet a person with whom they found happiness. The woman from the hair salon also appears, and she thanks Ola for changing her hairstyle against her wishes. Zoska calls her mum for the first time, and Bogdan finally decides to contact Ola. Tomek ends the show by stating that he will not reveal Hania's identity after all, because she is a hero who fights for what she needs, and concludes that each viewer probably already knows Hania, but chooses to ignore her. Hania's mother realizes that she's failed to support her daughter, and decides to go to the concert. Hania finds a brand new, gift-wrapped piano on the stage, along with a handwritten message from Tomek, wishing her a successful performance. Bogdan is happy to see that Ola has accepted his invitation to the concert, and Zoska is also happy to see them get back together. The performance is a big success, with everyone in the audience clapping and cheering. Ania's mother is especially touched by the song choice, because Ania and the kids play the same song Ania used to play for her parents when she was a child. Ella and Matilda sing their parts perfectly, and Antoni blows a kiss to his daughter. Igor sings a rap verse, and Peter's band also joins in, with Peter blasting a thunderous saxophone solo. After the performance, Igor goes to Ella and gives her a rose, telling her that she's a good singer. Ania watches them embrace and finally realizes the reason behind Igor's incessant teasing. Ania's mother apologizes and asks to be forgiven, and both of them start crying and embrace by the piano. Ania's mother finally seems willing to accept the past for what it was and look ahead to what lies in the future, which is the message of the song Ania, and the kids performed. Ania goes home to find several messages from Bittersweet, with whom she hasn't texted in a while. He's finally ready to meet her, and she tells him to come to an open-air cafe the following morning. Ania sits down and waits for her date in a beautiful white dress. Bittersweet's arrival is suddenly announced by 3 medieval trumpeters who appear on the balconies of a nearby building. She sees a man in full medieval armor riding towards her table on a white horse, and several musicians appear by her side to perform a medieval version of Europe's The Final Countdown. The knight dismounts and walks towards Ania, then kneels and gives her a rose bouquet. Ania is still convinced that Bittersweet is Peter, but the knight is offended by this presumption and lifts his helmet to reveal Tomek's face. Ania throws away the flowers and walks off, unable to believe that Tomek was the man behind the profile. Tomek goes after her but falls on the stairs, and can't get up because of his heavy armor. Marcel rushes to help him get up and get back on the horse, and Tomek catches up to Ania and explains that all he wanted to do was apologize and tell her that he loves her. Ania is surprised by his words, but a little dog starts barking and startles the horse. Tomek quickly falls on the ground, and the white horse drags the knight in shining armor through the cobbled street. Ania rushes to his aid, and Peter, who's sitting in a nearby cafe with his wife and young daughter, watches her in disbelief. Marcel finally manages to stop the horse, and Ania helps Tomek get up. He utters the 3 magical words yet again, and they kiss for a long time amid the cheering crowd. The rest of the story is presented through several magazine covers. Octavia is sacked from her position while Marcel advances in his career. Ola gets pregnant and becomes a famous hairstylist, while Bogdan's school turns into a breeding ground for talented young musicians. Finally, Zoska also finds success as a communicator for parents and their children. In the end, do you think that Ania and Tomek are really destined to be together? Or maybe she had something stronger with Antoni? Will Ola, Bogdan, and Zoska manage to find lasting happiness together? Finally, should Antoni's sister leave her cheating husband?